All right. So I said, I think in the very large, talking about years, except something really goes wrong, we will return back to some quote unquote measure of normalcy in the long run. But the important thing that people need to get is that the lessons that are learned now, the understanding that we get right now, is what is going to bring about the changes, even when things are seemingly normal. Because what's happening is that people are beginning to discover new dimensions and ways of doing things that makes their impact more effective, literally, than pre-COVID-19 times. So we're discovering things about lines of communication. We're discovering how to build small groups and some measure of interaction that we're going to carry into the post-COVID era. So the truth about the matter is that people that don't learn the lesson during this COVID-19 period will simply just go back to normalcy, and they will miss out on some of the real insights they're supposed to have. But generally speaking, I think we will return back to some external appearance of normalcy, but some people would have understood certain dimensions about how to go about things that they will inject into what they are now doing that looks normal, and that's where the change is going to occur.
Okay, you said that we're going to return to normalcy at the long run. You
Yeah.
said we're going to return to normalcy at the long run, but just in the immediate now that we have, still some form of social distancing rules, and we have things like, social distancing rules, and churches are not yet open per se. Would you say at this point now that traditional churches, what you consider, traditional churches, will be forced to, adjust and adapt, to this changing times?
All right, it's a very good question. But now, what I'm about to say here is what I have found reading the Bible, and
Okay.
I can back up what I'm saying directly from scriptures. Now, it might sound different to what people think, but I'm saying scriptures. Now, when you talk about a church, there are two things that you do in a religious organization. The first is that you feed people with knowledge and understanding of the scriptures. And the second thing is that you create people into a fold, which is like a community of people. Now, in communicating knowledge and understanding, in some cases also, you also transfer power into the lives of the people. Either you pray for them, you speak into their lives, and all of that. So there is the communication, which is the transmission of knowledge, wisdom, and power into people's lives. The second is the bringing people into folds. Now, the first dimension of ministry has not been affected. I don't believe so. Okay? Because one of the most powerful modes of communication of even Paul, who wrote the New Testament, was through letters. And if I can stand before you right here and speak to you and explain things to you, then I can still communicate with you. I can pass my knowledge across to you. I can pass my understanding across to you, and I can transmit power into your life. You don't have to be physically present for me to do that. The scriptures show that, okay? The Roman centurion told Jesus, you don't need to come into my house. Speak the word only where you are, and my servant shall be made whole. And it happened. So there can be a transmission of power without us being physically together in a location. Now, when it comes to the folding together, what the scripture says is where 2 or 3 are gathered. We don't necessarily have to come in our thousands together. We don't have to be 10,000 people together, but we must have small groups of people that come together, all right, and interact and fellowship. Now, I believe that is very important and that is crucial, all right? So, and we see inside the New Testament, you had the apostles' doctrine, and then you had them going from house to house, which is this small group things meeting in houses. Now, provided we are able to, all right, have our small groups that are meeting, I believe that 95% we can fulfill the commission of God under these conditions and actually discover, all right, a lot about God's power. I do not, as I am now. I mean, I know a gentleman in the United States of America who on the first weekend of the shutdown, from his online church service, they reached 21 million people and had 16,000 people commit their lives, all right, and declare their faith, all right, in it. 16,000 people, and they reached 21 million people. You cannot do that in the four walls of a church. I don't care how big your church is.
True. Yeah. And now you talked about, innovations, accepting and embracing innovations, like using screens now. And although we've not seen it in Nigeria yet, I have not seen it so far. Do you think, for the immediate now, I'm talking about the immediate, before on the long run where it gets to, normalcy, do you think that drive-in churches will become a thing over here?
No. It's not going to happen. I mean, you have to have a very large compound. If you go to churches in America where this is being done, any average church in America, based on the town planning, the space they have for car park. In fact, you can go to a church that maybe 500 people, they have a large expanse to park cars. It's part of the urban planning in that place. You cannot have a church facility without having a large car park. And there are few churches, all right, that have, very few churches, you can count them on your finger, that have that kind of size of car park. So it's not part of our culture. That is not going to happen in Federal Republic of Nigeria because it's just not part of our culture.
All right,
and we don't have the infrastructure for that to happen. Yeah.
And it brings me to my next question. The question about, the possible appetite that might have developed in the hearts of people. People for the past like 1 month and 1 month plus, I've been watching things via their screens, whether it's the TV or online. And you're thinking that on the long run, once, the possible appetite that have developed in the hearts of people, once it make people, shun not going to, physical spaces of worship.
All right, that's a very good, how will I say that? I mean, it's a concern. But the reason why I don't think that is going to happen, the way human nature really works. You see, when God tells us to gather together, is not because he's saying it as a commandment that is imposing on us. He's saying that I am your creator and you cannot function properly without coming together. So there is an inherent desire, craving, and also a need in human nature. When the brain is studied, the biggest part of the brain is where you have social intelligence, which has to do with interaction with people. The difference between man interacts differently with themselves in a different way from animals. Now, I'll also tell you something. My mother did some research, when she was doing her thesis. She's a medical doctor and she was doing it for something. And in it, and I read it, it was called the silent cry. And she was talking about the cry, and about how the extended family system in Africa, serves a very powerful purpose, and that we mustn't undermine it or underrate it or exchange that for westernization. And in it, in the research, she quoted an Emperor Frederick, if I can remember well, in the 13th century. And this emperor wanted to find out what will happen if children are born, they are fed, they are taken away from their mother. They are fed, they are given clothes, they are given water, but no form of love or compassion is shown to the children. He wanted to see how they will develop. So he took about 30 children. The minute they were born, they were separated from their mother, given to midwives. They were under strict instructions to feed them when they were hungry, to give them to drink when they were thirsty, to put clothes, but not to hug them, not to hold them. And after 3 months, they came to check how the development was. Every single child was dead. Now, it tells us how important, all right, interaction between people is in order. That's why when you want to punish somebody in jail, they say put him in solitary confinement. It is a severe punishment because you are separating that person from any form of social interaction, even in jail. All right. And that's one of the most difficult things for the human nature. So let me say this here. One of the things that this COVID-19 will show people with social distancing, isolation, is how important, all right, interacting with people are. So I believe that once it is clear on the horizon that coming into large gatherings will not be endanger the lives of people, everybody is going to rush into it. And the truth about the matter is we might even have more people. However, there will still be some elements of what we have discovered, all right, that we'll be able to do outside, physical gathering and all of that we can implement, which is what we're saying. But I have no fear in my heart that ultimately people are going to come back, all right, because that's just the way human nature is.
All right, sir. And most people have spoken concerning, COVID-19 itself, and they've said the bigger issue is not so much the health issue, but about the economic issues that come afterwards. And it brings me to this question: that how has the church, been affected, so far, financially and economically, due to this COVID-19 situation?
Well, I mean, the church to a large extent will, all right, with certain exceptions, will be a reflection of what is going on. So if you are in an area where there is real poverty in the place, then there's absolutely no way you are going to be reflective on the quote unquote on the income that is coming in to the church. So it is true, all right. Some people have not yet felt the impact, maybe because I don't know, but it's true that if there is a real economic downturn, then of course everybody that lives within that environment will have that kind of impact that they will feel. So it's important to teach people, because wherever you have a debit, you must always have a credit somewhere else. In other words, once there's a withdrawal somewhere, there has to be a deposit somewhere. So even when people say that money has moved, it has moved somewhere else because the money is still largely the same. So I think what people need to understand is what are the creative and innovative ideas that they can birth during this particular period of time here and position themselves correctly for the future.
Okay, that's quite insightful. Thank you so much, sir. And the next question would be, certain circles, especially at the beginning of this whole COVID-19 situation, you hear them talk about the fact that, oh, it's God, trying to deal with the wicked. It's God trying to met out some form of, judgment or some form of divine punishment, on people. So I'd like you to help clarify that, where it stands when it comes to divine punishment and, say, pandemics and epidemics around the world.
Look, everybody has their own different theology. Everybody has the way they interpret and things that are happening within the environment. Except somebody can come with very clearly and define from the scriptures that it is so, then it's subject to what people feel. Now, for me, as a person, because when you are faced with something and you pray, and for me, what I believe is happening now is that, yes, there's a reset that is going on the earth, that God's hand is involved in that reset. Now, but I do not believe that something that will kill, all right, parents and leave children as orphans, that will kill and destroy homes, businesses, that God sits in heaven in his infinite wisdom and says, this is what I'm going to do in order, to teach these people, all right, a lesson. Okay, I don't believe that, but I do believe that it has come and it can be used as an opportunity for there to be, or let me put it this way, it's simple. If I jump off a balcony and I land and I break my leg, God forbid, I can't say God punished me. I will simply say I violated a law of God, and there was the recompense that came on me. So probably humanity has been involved in things, not that God as an act on his own decides that this is what I'm going to do, but that has triggered this particular thing. And if we examine it closely and properly, we will see the adjustments that we are supposed to make to close the door on this kind of things. But that God made a decision to bring this kind of affliction into the earth, I do not believe I don't believe that that shows the character of God. But I believe that something is going on. And I believe that we opened the door, all right, to this as humanity on the earth by certain things, all right, that we do.
Okay, that's quite insightful. And it brings me to my next question. For most pandemics and epidemics, there has always been the need for there to be a bridge between, say, science and religion. And this is what I'm talking about. During Ebola crisis, there was the need, not in Nigeria, but in places like Liberia and Guinea, there was a need for them to engage, religious institutions. There was a need for them to engage religious leaders. Why is it always this way? Why there always needs to be a bridge between religion and science when it comes to issues like this?
Yes. What do you mean? I want to know exactly what you want me to speak to. When you say there needs to be a bridge, what do you mean? Are you saying that, for example, in England, America, or England, and they don't talk to religious leaders, but we have to talk to religious leaders here? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm talking about the influence, the huge influence, especially in these times, that religious leaders have on the populace.
Okay, let me tell you. Let me say something here. I think I read this I think I read this in IFC, International Finance Corporation, or I read it in Financial Times or something, and they were talking about the mismanagement of resources and political leadership in Africa, and because of that, the people have lost faith in all of this, and the only thing they can hold on to, all right, in a very large extent, in fact, what is keeping the continent calm is because people constantly, let's say they come to church and they hear words of hope, they hear words, all right, that you still can make it in life and all of that. And so there's encouragement and all of this. And that's why to a very large extent, you may not have had an implosion, all right, on the continent in a large extent. Some might say, well, maybe the implosion is needed, but it does that. Now, so what has therefore happened is that, for example, let me give an example here. There was a day in the morning, around 7 a.m., somebody called me and said, Pastor. I said, yes, what? She says, there's an accident somewhere, which was quite far away from where I was, and that the car is on fire, and we need help. That is, the car is burned or something. I mean, this is is it a pastor you should call about an accident, all right, and there's fire that is burning? And what can I do? I mean, I'm not a firefighter. She didn't call the firefighter. She didn't call. You're calling the pastor. So when it was over and after, and I sat and I thought about it. Why would you call that? And I thought that probably what she was trying to say was that maybe if you call these people, and they will respond, can you help? But it comes to the point where when the infrastructure of a society is broken, people have a tendency just to lean on whatever is there that is providing a support structure for them. All right. And so what has happened is that has created a lot of influence for religious leaders. And so, of course, if you are going to bring anything in, all right, which is political leaders, sometimes the populace may not trust you, they may have misgivings about it, and they will need the intervention of people that, to at least to a certain extent, whichever way it is, they believe they can trust to intervene on it. That's what's going on right now in the country right now. So you have, for example, people don't have food to eat, right, during the shutdown. You see people immediately resorting to churches, people calling pastors, sending mails, all right, to pastors. They might have rich uncles, but they will send a mail to the pastor and all of that. And the pastor responds, and they try to organize things, and they respond to it. And that's why, to a very large extent, they have that kind of influence they have over the minds of the people.
Okay, and that brings me to my next question. Thank God you touched on it. And the question is about, why the church doesn't as much, to great extent, I want to put it that way, talk about its work when it comes to welfare and social justice. You said now that people sending mails and all of that, and I'm sure majority of the churches in Nigeria have done a whole lot when it comes to welfare, especially during this period, and also to the frontline workers and all of that. So why doesn't the church, I don't know the thinking behind it, why doesn't the church publicize all of these things?
But let me ask you, why should we publicize it? For what purpose? The only reason why we'll do that is that we are trying to create an impression upon the minds of people about what we are doing. And I mean, people believe that in terms of charitable donation, to a large extent is between you and your God and your Creator, who sees that. When you are growing up in school, if you help a friend or you help people, let's say you are in the boarding house and you help people in the boarding house with food, you don't go to the school board to go and write, I am the one who helped so and so and so and so with their food and all of that. That will not be proper. So I believe that proper right ethical culture is what they have taken out of. Now, if the price is that people misunderstand us, if the price is that we unduly attack us, if the price is if we publicize some of the things that we are saying, all right, it will quieten the attack. If the price is the attack, then let the attack come. All right, but we're not going to disobey what we believe is an injunction from God in order to appease men.
All right. And this question that I have to, it's based on certain doctrine of, I would say, the scripture. The one that says that you lay hands on the sick and they will be well. I think it's somewhere in the book of Mark. And now, I guess my question is that should certain people or certain Christians that have that belief that they can lay hands on the sick and they will be healed, should they be allowed to lay hands on certain patients that are down with, like, say, coronavirus, or pastors?
Let me ask you a question. Did anybody in the Bible take authorization from anybody in authority to lay hands on the sick? No. If you have the healing anointing to heal people and you go out there and you lay hands on a crippled man and he starts walking, you walk down the road, you lay hands on a blind man, he starts seeing, you walk down on the road, you lay hands on the person that everybody knows is deaf for years and he begins to hear, and you do all of that. I think, all right, nobody will challenge your capability to heal the sick under God. So I don't think you need to go and take permission from the government to go and pray for the sick. All right, if you pray for the sick, I mean, if you don't have to lay hands on a blind man for blind people to come. If you lay hands on a cripple and the cripple jumps to his feet, and a blind man cares about that, the blind man will show up. You lay hands on the blind man sees, he tells a person who is there, or tell somebody who is born name, they will stop. So I don't think we need permission from the government to pray for the sick.
Well, I struggled a bit with your answer because I couldn't hear it was clearly, but I'm sure you answered the question. And just to our listeners out there, you can send in your questions if you have any for Pastor Poju. We'll make a selection of some of the questions that he might, want to answer at this sort of time. So, and probably my final question would be, we saw the way that the covenant nation, responded to this. This period, how you were able to quickly adjust and adapt, to the changing landscape. How were you able to achieve this in so short a time?
It is people that tell me that you adapted quickly and, it was remarkable. I just did what occurred to me. I just looked at it and said, no, okay, let me put it this way. I looked at it and I understood we are dealing with a marathon and not a sprint. All right, I knew we were not coming back the next Sunday. I knew we were not coming back in 2 Sundays. I knew that we had to establish a way of ministering to the people. I understood what our objectives were. I looked at what the tools that we had were, and then I put out, all right, that. Because I quickly understood that we are playing the long game and we're not playing for the short. All right, this is a sprint, this is a marathon. So my mind adjusted to the fact that you have to find a sustainable way of ministering to the people according to the dictates that God has given to you. And so we adapted to that. And there are more than enough tools on this earth to be very effective in ministering to people.
All right, thank you so much. There's a question here. I don't know if we're going to be taking that, but I guess I can just read to you, but you can decline if you don't want to answer. And it says, what are the Nigerian churches? It's from Moses Tiamu. It says, what are the Nigerian churches doing to manage the charlatans coming into the scene without any form of control? Let me take that again. What are the Nigerian churches doing to manage the charlatans coming into the scene without any form of control?
What the Nigerian leadership has done is that he himself knows that they are charlatans because he has been taught properly. So because he has been taught properly, he can identify charlatans from authentic people. That's what the Nigerian church has done. There is nothing anybody can do beyond, even if you come together and sanction a person, so long as the person is not disobeying the law of a land, you cannot stop a person from ministry. That is his belief. He wants to communicate his belief, and he has a right to do it, provided it's not injurious to the public. So there's nothing you can do about that. All right? If we can take a scriptural position, but you can't stop them, all right, from doing that. But if people are taught right, then they will say what you just said now and call people who are wrong charlatans.
All right, sir. All right, and final question before we let you go, because we're going to have another marginalized session sometime after this with Pastor Sirama. Yeah. And the final question is, what role is the church playing in ensuring we have working institutions in Nigeria? What influence is the church exerting on government to ensure proper governance?
You see what we are saying, that everything they turn to the church. We are not. Everything everybody turns to the church. All right. Look. All right. What I think people need to do, what I actually think people need to do, is that people don't know how powerful they can be in a democratic system of government. So people need to go and read and go and study how democracy functions and the institutions that make them function and how they work. All right. If they understand those institutions and how they work, and they understand how to participate in the political process and how to create influence and power, then they will understand, they will know how to begin to make changes. The reason why we are not getting the kind of changes we need in this democratic system of government is that people are trying to change things the way you do it under a military system of government. The way you do it is under a democratic system of government. There are many openings, all right? Many openings there, okay? If 30,000 people, if people living in an area come together and they decide that they are going to join one of the major political parties that has a national, so they know that at the world level, and they all go into that world, and there are people with middle class, they have some money, they have some loose cash, and they spend the loose cash within that geographical area, and we have groups of people like this just all over a state, and they go into this political process with loose cash of 10,000, 20,000 to be able to spend, and they come together. They will take over the major political platforms in this country. Or even if they don't actually win, they will shift those platforms. And people will know that the only way we can hold on to power there is that we comply with what these people are saying. Because any politician will pivot once he knows he's going to lose political power. That is what they respond to all over the world. Loss of power, I give you what you want. Give me power, I give you what you want. Do you want good roads? I give you the good roads so long as I'm in power. So people have got to understand it. It's not as difficult, but they have to read up. It's not a pastor, it's not the churches that are going to, shout and preach to people. That's not the way it's going to happen. Now, the church can create a platform to educate people to do that, but people have got to, and I'm not saying don't just wake up, and harass people. I mean, let me say this to you, and I'll close this. I was listening to a discussion this morning, and it had to do a roundtable with a lot of powerful intellectuals from China and Europe. And there was a man who was talking about how social media has made people believe they are now powerful. But he said that power, the way it works is, people will use Twitter and all of these things to mobilize people. And you will see them on the street. He said, but when it comes to election, you will only find a fraction of those people coming to vote. In other words, there is a misguided way about how the power in this democratic system of government works. So what the people should do, and this is how things start, is they should all right, middle class people that have when I say loose cash, 10,000, 20,000, should infiltrate the major platforms in this country at the lowest level. And if they go in at the lowest level and take over the world and become the delegates and all of that, then they are going to start influencing the platforms, and people will begin to pivot in order to be able to hold on to power. That's what's going on.
Wow. Thank you so much for speaking to us on The Guardian. It has been an absolute pleasure, an insightful session. When you see, if you go through the comment section, a whole lot of things is wisdom. So there's been a whole lot of insights, to glean from all of these things that you've spoken. And we're absolutely grateful that you made out time out of your busy schedule to speak to us. And we've been talking with Pastor Poju Oyemade, the senior pastor of the Covenant Nation and convener of the platform. I'm sure you caught that on TV, a couple of days ago, and it was huge, it was massive. And I will say congratulations once again on the success of the platform. It was massive, it was huge, and I'm sure it would have shifted the needle for certain things in this country. Thank you so much for talking to us. Thank
you for having me on such an honorable platform as the Guardian Nigeria. It's a very respected platform in this country, and so I want to say thank you for inviting me.
And once again, happy birthday to you. Many more years in the land of the living. Have a great one. Have a good evening, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Bye, sir. So thank you all so much for joining on the IG Live session with Pastor Poju Oyemade. If you have any other comments, you can send it to us on our Instagram platform or also on our Twitter. It's at Guardian Nigeria across all platforms. Thank you so much for sticking with us. We have a couple of IG sessions also lined up for some time next week, talking with different experts, and hopefully we're going to be talking with another religious leader, to make it much more rounded and balanced. Thank you so much for talking to us and sticking with us. And to those that sent in comments, that sent in wishes to Pastor Poju, you guys are wonderful. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, presenting this to you. My name is Fowowe, and have for yourself a wonderful evening.